presented by SoundLibra.com. Explore more titles via the link in the description or at SoundLibra.com. Systems ignite big change.
That's right, Alex. Real quick before we jump in, though, just a heads up that while we're discussing habits and lifestyle changes, this isn't medical or professional health advice, so definitely consult with a professional for your specific needs.
Great point, Lisa. We often think of big changes requiring huge efforts, like a sudden burst of motivation. But what if the secret to transformation isn't in grand gestures, but in the power of the incredibly small? Exactly, Lisa. That's the core idea behind atomic routines. Think of an atom. It's the smallest unit of a chemical element, yet it's the building block for everything around us. Our routines can be just like that, tiny, fundamental units that, when repeated consistently, build remarkable outcomes.
So, instead of aiming to run a marathon, we might start with walking around the block?
Precisely. We're talking about focusing on making tiny improvements that are so small, they're almost effortless. These are routines so small they're easy to start and easy to stick with. This approach addresses a huge pitfall most people encounter when trying to make changes, relying on motivation.
Motivation. The fickle friend that shows up when we don't need it and vanishes when we most want it.
You hit the nail on the head. Motivation is unreliable. It surges and it ebbs. If your habits, your systems for change, depend on feeling motivated, you're setting yourself up for frustration and disappointment. We've all been there, right? You're super inspired to eat healthy, you buy all the kale, and then life happens. The motivation fades and the kale wilts.
And then we feel guilty, which often leads to giving up entirely, thinking, I just don't have enough willpower.
Exactly. But what if we could achieve significant results without needing a massive surge of motivation? This is where systems come into play. Systems are the processes that allow you to make progress, even when you don't feel like it. Atomic routines are the foundation of these systems.
So, rather than trying to feel like doing something, we create a system that makes doing it nearly automatic, perhaps even unconscious?
That's the goal. We want to build habits so small and so consistent that they become a natural part of your day. Think about brushing your teeth. Do you wake up and think, ugh, I really don't feel motivated to brush my teeth today? Probably not. It's a routine, a system you've built over time.
That's a perfect example. It's so ingrained, I don't even have to think about it.
And that's the power we're aiming for. We're going to explore how to take that level of ingrained behavior and apply it to any area of your life, your health, your productivity, your relationships, your finances, anything. We're not talking about overnight revolutions. We're talking about the steady, compounding effect of consistent, tiny actions.
The atomic spark, then, is the realization that these minuscule, consistent efforts are the true catalysts for lasting change. It's the understanding that small wins build momentum.
Yes, and these small wins aren't just about the immediate outcome of the action. They also build your belief in yourself. Each time you complete an atomic routine, you reinforce the idea that you can do what you set out to do. This is a critical part of the process that we'll delve into more deeply.
It sounds like we're shifting the focus from outcome, like losing 20 pounds, to process, like performing a very small, consistent action every day.
Exactly. When you make the action so small, so manageable, that it's almost impossible to fail, you create consistency. And consistency, over time, is what leads to massive results. It's like compound interest for your habits. A tiny deposit every day adds up to a fortune over years.
So, for our listeners starting out, what's the very first step they can take with this atomic mindset?
The very first step is to identify one small thing you want to improve. And I mean really small. If you want to read more, don't commit to an hour a day. Commit to reading one page. If you want to exercise, commit to doing one push-up or one squat. The goal is not the immediate impact of the action, but the habit of doing the action.
1 page of reading, 1 squat. That does sound incredibly easy. It almost feels too easy.
That's the genius. It bypasses the resistance that often stops us. It doesn't require a huge willpower reserve. It's simply a tiny action that you can slot into your day. We'll spend the next few episodes really diving into how to build these foundational routines, how to stack them, and how to design your environment to support them.
So, to recap for our listeners, we're moving away from relying on motivation, which is unreliable, and focusing instead on building repeatable, tiny systems, our atomic routines. These small, consistent actions are the building blocks for significant, lasting change. The key is making them so small, they're almost effortless to start and maintain.
That's the essence. This is just the first spark. Over the coming episodes, we're going to fan this spark into a bonfire of transformation. Next episode, the power of the loop, understanding habit formation. Welcome back. Last time we explored how even the smallest actions can ignite significant change by building tiny systems. Now let's understand the engine that drives these systems, the habit loop.
That's right, Alex. We often think of habits as just things we do, but there's a powerful underlying mechanism at play. Today, we're going to break down this mechanism into its core components and see how we can use it to our advantage.
Exactly. So what is this habit loop? At its heart, it's a neurological pattern that consists of three essential parts: a cue, a routine, and a reward. Think of it like a three-step dance your brain performs automatically.
A 3 step dance. I like that. So, let's unpack each step. First, the cue. What exactly is a cue?
A cue is any trigger that tells your brain to go into automatic mode and which habit to use. It's the signal that initiates the habit. Cues can be anything: a time of day, a location, a certain emotion, a specific person, or even a preceding action. For instance, feeling stressed could be a cue.
Okay, so the cue is the start signal. And then what happens? That's where the routine comes in?
Precisely. The routine is the habit itself, the physical, mental, or emotional behavior that follows the cue. This is the action you take. If the cue is feeling stressed, the routine could be reaching for a sugary snack, scrolling through social media, or perhaps a few minutes of deep breathing.
So the cue tells you, do this, and the routine is the this you do. What about the third part, the reward? Why do we even bother doing the routine?
Ah, the reward. This is arguably the most critical part for making a habit stick. The reward is the positive outcome or feeling that your brain gets from completing the routine. It's what tells your brain, hey, this is a good thing to remember and do again. The reward helps your brain figure out which loops are worth remembering for the future.
So, if the cue is stress and my routine is eating a cookie, the reward might be that momentary feeling of comfort or distraction from the stress. It's like a little party for my brain after a little tension.
That's a perfect analogy, Lisa. That little party, that immediate pleasure or relief, is what reinforces the loop. Your brain learns to associate the cue, like stress, with the routine, like eating a cookie, and the reward, like feeling better, even if temporarily. Over time, this association becomes stronger, and the habit becomes more automatic.
It makes so much sense. It's like we're wired to seek out these satisfying payoffs. But what happens if the reward isn't that great, or if it's actually harmful in the long run?
That's where understanding the loop allows us to intervene and make changes. For a habit to become ingrained, there needs to be a desire for the reward. Without that anticipation, the loop won't solidify. We need to recognize what reward we're truly seeking. For example, is the reward of stress eating truly satisfaction, or is it a fleeting distraction?
So, it's about identifying what we're actually getting out of a habit. Sometimes it's not what we think it is.
Exactly. And this is where we can start to design our atomic routines. The first step in designing a new, positive habit is to identify a cue that you can reliably count on. Think about what already happens in your day. What are the predictable moments? Are you always thirsty after waking up? Do you always walk past the kitchen on your way to the living room?
So, we're looking for existing patterns to latch onto. That's a great starting point. I can already think of a few cues in my day.
Fantastic. Once you have a cue, you can then choose a simple, tiny routine to perform. Remember, we're talking about atomic routines here, small, manageable actions. If your cue is that post-lunch slump, a tiny routine might be taking just 5 deep breaths or doing 10 jumping jacks instead of mindless scroll.
And then, we need that reward to make it stick?
Absolutely. The key is to provide yourself with an immediate reward. This reward should be something you genuinely enjoy and that reinforces the positive behavior. It could be a moment of satisfaction, a small treat, a healthy one, ideally, or even just a mental acknowledgement of a job well done. The reward fuels the desire, and the desire drives the next iteration of the loop.
So, to recap, we have the cue, which is the trigger, then the routine, which is the action we take, and finally, the reward, which is the positive feeling or outcome that reinforces it. And the goal is to identify existing cues, attach tiny, positive routines to them, and provide an immediate reward to build a strong, automatic habit loop.
You got it, Lisa. Understanding this cue routine reward loop is the foundation for building any successful habit change. It's the fundamental mechanism that allows our tiny systems to become powerful drivers of transformation. By consciously designing this loop, we move from being passive participants in our habits to active architects.
It's like understanding the secret handshake our brain uses to remember things. And by learning that handshake, we can teach it new, better moves.
Precisely. Next episode, habit stacking, linking new to old. Happy learning. Welcome back to Atomic Routines. Last time, we explored the power of a loop, how habits are formed and broken. Now let's tackle a fantastic technique for building new habits, habit stacking.
Habit stacking. It sounds like building blocks, doesn't it, Alex? I'm ready to learn how to connect those new habits to the ones I already have.
Exactly, Lisa. Think of it like this. Our brains love patterns and routines. When you want to introduce a new habit, instead of trying to remember it from scratch, you can stack it onto an existing habit. It's like attaching a new action to an anchor you've already firmly set in place.
So, I already do something every day and I can just add on a new, tiny habit right after it?
Precisely. The formula is simple. After I current habit, I will new habit. It's incredibly straightforward, but the impact is huge. This makes the new habit easier to remember because it's triggered by something you're already doing automatically.
That makes so much sense. It's like, because I'm already in the motion of doing one thing, the next small thing just flows naturally. Can you give us an example?
Absolutely. Let's say you want to start flossing your teeth daily, but you always forget. You already brush your teeth, right? That's a well-established habit. So you could stack it. After I brush my teeth, I will floss one tooth.
Just one tooth? That seems so small.
And that's the beauty of atomic habits. We're not aiming for perfection on day one. The goal is consistency. By flossing just one tooth, you create the habit. Once that's automatic, you might increase it to 2 teeth, then 3, and eventually you'll be flossing all of them without even thinking about it because it's now part of your brushing routine.
Okay, I see. You start with something so small it's almost impossible to fail. And because it's linked to an existing habit, brushing teeth, you don't have to rely solely on willpower or memory.
You've got it. Habit stacking leverages the power of your existing routines. Another example, you want to start drinking more water. You get a cup of coffee every morning. So, your habit stack could be, after I pour my morning coffee, I will drink a full glass of water first.
Oh, I love that. I already make coffee and then sit down to drink it. I could easily have a glass of water right next to the coffee maker. So, after I finish making my coffee, I'll grab that glass of water. That's super actionable.
It is. And think about the feeling of accomplishment. After you pour your coffee, you've immediately completed a new habit, drinking that glass of water. That's your tiny win for the day, stacking up. Remember, the smaller the habit, the more likely you are to stick with it. When you're starting out, don't be afraid to make the new habit almost ridiculously tiny. The goal is to build the momentum.
So, the key is identifying a current, consistent habit and then attaching a very small, new habit that follows immediately. What if someone has a few established habits? Can they stack multiple new habits?
Great question, Lisa. You absolutely can, but it's best to start with one. Once that stack is solidified, meaning the new habit feels automatic after the old one, then you can consider adding another small habit. For instance, someone might have this stack. After I brush my teeth, I will floss one tooth. Later, they might add, after I floss one tooth, I will read one page of a book.
So, it's like a chain reaction of good behaviors. Brush teeth, floss one tooth, read one page. Each one automatically triggers the next.
Exactly. And the more you practice stacking, the more you'll notice opportunities. You'll start to see your day differently, recognizing these natural transition points. If you want to start meditating, maybe it's after I sit down at my work desk, I'll take 3 deep breaths. It's all about finding those existing anchors.
This is incredibly helpful, Alex. It takes the pressure off and makes building new habits feel much more manageable. Instead of saying, I need to meditate for 30 minutes, it becomes after I finish my morning walk, I will sit for 1 minute.
Precisely. And that 1 minute of meditation is a habit successfully built. It's about progress, not immediate perfection. We're building atomic routines, remember? Tiny, potent systems that create significant change over time, simply by being consistent. Habit stacking is a foundational tool for creating that consistency.
So, to recap for our listeners, habit stacking is the strategy of attaching a new, small habit to an existing, well-established habit. The format is after I current habit, I will new habit. It makes new habits easier to remember and perform, and by starting with a very small new habit, you dramatically increase your chances of success.
That's a perfect summary, Lisa. It's about making the desired behavior so easy, so integrated, that it becomes almost impossible to forget. We're training our brains to link actions together, creating a seamless flow of productive and positive behaviors.
I'm already thinking about what I can stack. This feels like a genuine breakthrough in habit formation.
It truly is. It's one of the most powerful, yet simplest strategies available.
Next episode, making habit formation even more effortless by embracing the power of the tiny goal.
Welcome back. Last time, we explored how to link new habits to existing ones with habit stacking, making them easier to remember and implement. Today, we're diving into a concept that makes those habits truly unstoppable, the tiny goal guarantee.
The tiny goal guarantee. I like the sound of that. It sounds easy. And honestly, after trying to build some new habits, easy is exactly what I need.
Exactly. And that's the core of it. We're talking about making your new atomic routines so ridiculously small, so undeniably simple, that they become almost impossible to say no to. We introduced the idea of tiny systems back in episode 1, and this is where we really put that principle into practice.
So instead of thinking, I need to exercise for 30 minutes, we're breaking that down even further?
Much further, think about it this way. What's the absolute smallest version of a habit that still counts? For example, if you want to build a reading habit, what's the smallest possible action you could take?
Hmm. Maybe picking up a book? Or opening it to the first page?
Perfect. Now, imagine your goal is to read for 30 minutes every day. If you start with pick up a book, that's a tiny goal. It takes seconds. It's so small, it feels trivial. This is the essence of the 2-minute rule.
The 2-minute rule. So any habit you want to adopt, you should be able to do it in 2 minutes or less.
That's the idea, or even less. The goal isn't to do the habit for just 2 minutes, but to start the habit in 2 minutes. Think of it as the shortest possible version of the behavior. If your ultimate goal is to do 50 push-ups, your starting point the first week might be to do one push-up. If you want to meditate for 20 minutes, you start by sitting down and closing your eyes for 1 minute.
That feels so much less intimidating. It's like there's no excuse not to do it. You can always find 2 minutes, right?
Precisely. And this tiny start has a powerful psychological effect. When you do that tiny action, like putting on your running shoes or opening your journal, you've already begun. You've completed the first step. And often, once you've started, it's much easier to keep going. The momentum is already building.
So the tiny goal is like the gateway. It gets you past the initial resistance, the inertia.
Exactly. It's like a down payment on your habit. You're not demanding a huge commitment up front. You're just asking for a tiny, manageable action. This drastically reduces the friction to starting. Remember how we discussed making cues obvious and making the habit attractive? Making the habit incredibly small is about making it incredibly easy.
I can see how this ties back to environment design, too. If my goal is to practice guitar and I have my guitar out and accessible, that makes the tiny start of picking it up even easier.
You've got it. Accessibility and size work together. If your guitar is in its case, in a closet, a tiny start already feels bigger. But if it's on a stand, ready to go, picking it up is part of that effortless start. So, let's recap this crucial idea. For any new habit you want to build, determine what the most important part of the habit is, and then reduce that action to take less than 2 minutes.
Okay, so if I want to learn a language, my 2-minute habit might be to open my language app and do one flashcard. Or say one new word.
Perfect example. And if you want to clean your house more consistently, maybe your 2-minute habit is to put one item back in its proper place. Just one. It still contributes to a tidier space, and it's so small, you can do it anytime, anywhere.
This is brilliant. It's almost like tricking yourself into building a habit. You agree to do something incredibly small, and then because it's so easy, you often end up doing more.
And that's the magic. The goal is to build the identity of someone who performs that habit. By consistently performing that tiny action, you start to see yourself as a reader, a meditator, a musician, an exerciser. It's not about the immediate outcome of that tiny action, but about the cumulative effect of showing up and doing it. Over time, those tiny actions that feel effortless compound.
It's like creating a positive feedback loop. You do the tiny thing, you feel successful, that makes you more likely to do it again.
Exactly. And remember, the point isn't to limit yourself to 2 minutes forever. The 2-minute rule is for getting started and making it consistent. Once you've established the routine with the tiny version, you can naturally extend the time or increase the intensity. But the foundation is that incredibly small, effortless start.
So, the tiny goal guarantee is about making the beginning of your habit so small, so easy, that it's practically a guarantee you'll do it. And from that small beginning, bigger progress can grow.
That's a perfect summary, Lisa. We've introduced the idea of tiny systems, we've learned how to link habits, and now we're making them virtually impossible to skip by shrinking them down. This tiny approach is what makes atomic routines so powerful.
It makes so much sense. It takes away the feeling of overwhelm that often stops us before we even begin.
Next episode, Environment Design, your personal system architect. Welcome back. Last time, we talked about making new habits easy with tiny goals. Today, we're shifting our focus outward to the world around us and exploring environment design.
That sounds like a big topic, Alex. I'm used to thinking about habits as something that happens inside us. How does the environment play a role?
It plays a massive role, Lisa. Think about it. Your environment constantly sends you signals. Some signals encourage you to do things you want, and others steer you in the opposite direction. Your surroundings can be your biggest ally or your biggest roadblock.
So, it's like setting up your physical space to make good habits almost inevitable?
Exactly. We call this designing your environment or your personal system architect. It's about consciously shaping the world around you, your home, your workspace, even your digital spaces, so that the desirable behaviors are the easiest ones to choose. We want to make the path of least resistance the one that leads to our goals.
I like that, the path of least resistance. So, if I want to read more, what's one way I can design my environment to support that?
A classic example is making the good habit obvious and easy. If you want to read more, leave a book in a prominent place. Put on your bedside table, on the coffee table, or even on your kitchen counter. Make sure it's the first thing you see when you sit down to relax or when you enter a room.
Oh, so instead of having to search for it or remember to grab it, it's just there. That makes sense. It removes a little bit of friction.
Precisely. You're reducing the effort required to start. Conversely, you want to make bad habits invisible or difficult. If you're trying to cut down on junk food, don't keep in the house. If you must have some, hide it away in the back of a cupboard behind healthier options. The extra steps you have to take to get to the unhealthy choice can be enough to make you reconsider.
That's brilliant. It's almost like tricking yourself into making better choices by just manipulating what's in front of you.
It's not tricking, it's purposefully designing. And this concept is often referred to as choice architecture. It's about how options are presented to people and how that presentation influences their decisions. Think about a cafeteria. If the healthy food is placed at eye level and easily accessible, and the less healthy options are harder to reach or out of sight, people are more likely to choose the healthy food.
Choice architecture. I can see how that applies everywhere, even in how you set up your desktop on your computer or organize your phone apps.
Absolutely. If you want to spend less time on social media, move the apps off your home screen. Put them in a folder or even delete them and re-download them only when you intentionally decide to use them. You're creating a barrier, a small set of actions that must be taken before you can engage in that time-consuming activity.
So, we're essentially automating good decisions by making the environments for them effortless. This links back to what we discussed earlier about making habits attractive and easy.
Exactly. We're reinforcing those principles by looking at the external factors. It's not just about willpower. If your environment is constantly tempting you or making it hard to do the right thing, you'll be fighting an uphill battle.
It sounds like a proactive approach. Instead of waiting to develop the discipline to resist temptations, you're removing the temptations in the first place.
That's the power of environment design. It's about setting yourself up for success. For example, if you want to exercise in the morning, lay out your workout clothes the night before. Put them right by your bed so you see them the moment you wake up. Your gym bag can be packed and ready by the door. That small act of preparation makes the decision to go to the gym much easier.
It's like programming your future self to have a good day. You're reducing the number of decisions you have to make when you might be feeling tired or unmotivated.
Precisely. And this applies to our working lives too. If you're easily distracted by emails, try turning off notifications for a set period. Close unnecessary tabs on your browser. Create a dedicated workspace that's free from clutter. The less noise your environment has, the easier it is to focus on the task at hand.
This feels like an extension of the habit stacking idea, but applied to our surroundings. Instead of linking a new habit to an existing habit, you're linking the environment to the habit.
That's a great way to put it, Lisa. You're stacking your environment in favor of your goals. Think of it as creating environmental cues. A cue is anything that triggers a behavior. By designing your environment, You're deliberately placing positive cues and removing or obscuring negative ones.
So, to recap for our listeners, designing your environment means consciously shaping your physical and digital spaces to make good habits easier to start and maintain, and bad habits harder to do. Key strategies include making desired behaviors obvious and easy, and undesired behaviors invisible and difficult. This concept is known as choice architecture, influencing decisions by how options are presented.
Well said. It's about building systems that work with you, not against you. By becoming your own personal system architect, you can ensure your environment is a powerful ally in your journey towards building atomic routines.
I'm already thinking about how I can adjust my own space. It feels empowering to know we have this much control.
And that control is exactly what we'll build on. Next episode is about the identity equation, becoming who you want to be.
Thanks for listening.
Welcome back to Atomic Routines. Last time, we explored how to design your environment to support your goals. Now, we're diving into something truly transformative, the identity equation.
That's right, Alex. Up until now, we focused a lot on what to do, stacking habits, making tiny goals, designing our surroundings. But this discussion is about who you want to be. It's about shifting from focusing on outcomes to focusing on becoming the kind of person who achieves those outcomes naturally.
Exactly, Lisa. Think about it this way. You want to run a marathon, so you set a goal to run 3 times a week. That's an outcome-based habit. But what if instead you focused on becoming a runner? A runner gets up early to train, a runner eats nutritious food, a runner is disciplined. By adopting the identity of a runner, the actions, running 3 times a week, become a natural expression of that identity.
So instead of saying, I want to achieve this, we're thinking, I want to be this. It's a really subtle but powerful shift. If I want to be someone who is healthy, then healthy actions will feel like part of who I am, not just a task I have to force myself to do.
Precisely. And this is where atomic habits truly shine. The small, consistent actions you take are not just steps towards a goal. They're votes for the type of person you're becoming. Every time you choose a healthier meal, you're casting a vote for being a healthy person. Every time you choose to read for 15 minutes instead of scrolling on your phone, you're voting to be a more informed person.
I love that idea of casting votes for our desired identity. It makes those small, everyday choices feel much more significant. It's like you're collecting evidence of who you are through your actions.
That's a perfect way to put it, Lisa. You're literally gathering evidence to support your new identity. If you want to be a writer, you write, even if it's just for 5 minutes a day. That's evidence. If you want to be a patient person, you practice patience, even in small, frustrating moments. That's evidence. This is the core of the identity equation. Your habits are the building blocks of your identity.
So, how do we actively build this desired identity? Is it just about thinking it really hard?
Not quite. It starts with a deliberate choice about who you want to be. Ask yourself, what kind of person do I need to become to achieve the results I want? What are the characteristics of that person? Do they value creativity, discipline, health, kindness? Once you have a clear vision of this ideal identity, your habits become the pathway to becoming that person.
Okay, so I've decided I want to be a more creative person. What's the next step?
The next step is to align your habits with that identity. If you want to be a creative person, what does that person do? They might try new things. They might experiment. They might spend time observing the world around them. They might doodle. They might write down ideas. So, you would then implement tiny habits related to these actions. Perhaps it's 5 minutes of free writing each morning, or committing to trying one new recipe a week, or dedicating 10 minutes to sketching a day.
And these small actions aren't just about the outcome of writing, or cooking, or sketching. They are about reinforcing the identity of being a creative person.
Exactly. You're not just performing an action, you're proving to yourself, through that action, that you are that person. This is incredibly powerful because it shifts your motivation. Instead of procrastinating on writing because you don't feel inspired, you just write because that's what a writer does. The drive comes from within, from your identity.
It makes sense. When we see these small actions as proof of our identity, they feel less like a chore and more like an expression of self. We want to continue being the person we believe we are.
And here's a crucial point. Your identity is not set in stone. It's malleable. It's something you build. Every habit is a reinforcement. If you falter, if you miss a day of writing, it doesn't erase all the previous votes you've cast. You simply have an opportunity to cast another vote for your desired identity the next day. It's about continuous refinement, not perfection.
That's good to hear. It feels less daunting if we know that one slip up doesn't undo everything. So, to recap, the identity equation involves first choosing the person you want to become. Then you identify the habits that person would naturally engage in. Finally, you practice those habits consistently because each action serves as evidence, reinforcing your new self-image.
Precisely. Your habits are a continuous declaration of who you are. They shape your identity, and your identity, in turn, shapes your habits. It's a beautiful, self-reinforcing cycle. By focusing on becoming the type of person you want to be, you make the desired changes sustainable and authentic. You stop trying to achieve a goal and start living it.
It's like you're not just trying to build a habit, you're building yourself. And that feels like a much more profound and lasting form of change.
And that, Lisa, is the power of the identity equation. It's about becoming, not just doing. Next episode, identity shifts in action, crafting your self-image. Welcome back. Last time, we explored the fascinating concept of the identity equation. Today, we're focusing on identity shifts in action.
That's such a crucial step, Alex. A lot of people want to be someone new but don't know how to bridge the gap between who they are now and who they want to become. It feels like a huge leap.
Exactly, Lisa. And that's where the atomic part of atomic routines comes in. We don't make a giant leap. Instead, we focus on small, consistent actions that serve as proof. Think of it like this. Every time you perform an action that aligns with your desired identity, you're casting a vote for that identity. You're essentially telling yourself, see, I am that kind of person.
So, if I want to be a writer and I commit to writing for just 5 minutes each day, those 5 minutes are votes for my identity as a writer?
Precisely. It's not about the outcome of those 5 minutes, whether you wrote a masterpiece or just a few sentences. It's about the act itself. The consistent action is what changes your internal narrative. You start to see yourself not as someone who wants to be a writer, but as someone who is a writer because writers write, even if it's just for a short time.
That makes it feel so much more achievable. It reframes the entire process from this daunting task of personality transformation into a series of small, manageable choices. So, what are some concrete ways we can start casting these votes for our desired identity?
One of the most powerful ways is to focus on the small wins that reinforce your new identity. Let's say your goal is to be healthier. Instead of focusing on the massive goal of losing 50 pounds, which can feel overwhelming, you focus on adopting the identity of someone who makes healthy choices.
Okay, so what does that look like in terms of atomic routines?
It could be as simple as deciding, I am the type of person who always drinks a glass of water first thing in the morning. Or, I'm the type of person who chooses fruit over a sugary snack when I'm hungry. Each time you make that choice, you're not just performing an action for a physical outcome. You're reaffirming your identity as a healthy person.
I love that distinction. It's like changing your self-perception first, and then letting the actions flow from that new perception. It's not about forcing yourself to do something you don't feel like doing. It's about aligning your actions with who you already are or who you are becoming.
Exactly. And this ties back to the idea of identity stacking from our previous discussion. You can link new identity affirming habits to existing ones. If you already have a routine of brushing your teeth, you can stack a new identity affirming action onto it. For instance, if you want to be a more mindful person, you could say, after I brush my teeth, I will take 3 deep, mindful breaths. That's a tiny action, but it's a vote for being a mindful person.
So, the routine itself becomes evidence. The more you perform the action, the more concrete that evidence becomes in your own mind. It's like building a case for your new identity, one small action at a time.
You've got it. And it's important to remember that these actions don't have to be grand gestures. The smaller they are, the easier they are to perform consistently, and the easier it is to believe in them. It's about showing up for yourself in small ways every single day, because those small showings add up to a powerful transformation.
Can we talk about what happens when we encounter setbacks? Because I imagine there will be days when we don't cast that vote, or we do something that feels counter to our desired identity.
That's a critical point, Lisa. Setbacks are inevitable, but they don't have to derail you. The key is how you frame them. Instead of seeing a slip up as proof that you're not the person you want to be, view it as a temporary deviation. Remember all those votes you've cast? One missed vote doesn't erase the others.
So, it's about focusing on the overall trend rather than individual instances. Like looking at your bank statement and seeing a massive overall increase in savings, even if there was one day you splurged a little.
That's a great analogy. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is progress and consistency over time. When you have a setback, the most important thing is to return to your atomic routine as soon as possible. Don't let one missed day turn into 2 or 3. Get back on track. Your future self will thank you for it.
It really comes down to what we, ourselves, believe about ourselves. If we believe we are capable of change, and we consistently act in ways that reflect that belief, then change becomes not just possible, but probable.
Absolutely. And this is where the magic happens. By actively crafting your self-image through consistent, tiny actions, your atomic routines, you create a powerful feedback loop. The actions reinforce the identity, and the identity fuels more actions. It's a virtuous cycle of personal growth.
So, to recap for our listeners, to shift your identity, focus on performing actions that align with your desired self. These small actions are votes for your new identity. Keep casting those votes through atomic routines and don't let setbacks derail you. Acknowledge them, learn from them, and get back to voting for the person you are becoming.
That's the essence of it. By making these small, consistent choices, you're not just changing your habits. You're fundamentally changing who you believe yourself to be. And that, my friends, is where lasting change begins. Next, we'll talk about how to track these tiny progress markers, even when they seem microscopic. Welcome back. Last time, we explored how crafting your self-image fuels your habit changes. Now, let's talk about something crucial for keeping that momentum: measuring your microscopic progress.
Measuring progress sounds so serious, Alex. Like a performance review. I'm hoping we're not going to talk about strict data logging and judging ourselves.
That's exactly the trap we want to avoid, Lisa. The whole point of atomic routines is to make change feel effortless and sustainable. So, when we talk about measuring, we're not talking about rigid metrics that can feel discouraging. We're talking about tracking your consistency, celebrating those tiny wins, and using that feedback to reinforce the habit loop. Remember our habit loop from episode 2? The cue, the craving, the response, and the reward? Tracking helps us see if that loop is strengthening.
The habit loop. So, Measuring progress is essentially about observing if the cue is leading to the action and if we're feeling that sense of satisfaction, the reward.
Precisely. Think of it this way. If you want to become a gardener and you're trying to water your plants every day, how do you know if you're actually doing it? You need some way to acknowledge that you took the action. This isn't about counting every single drop of water, but about marking the fact that you showed up and did the deed.
Okay, I'm with you on that. So, what are some simple ways listeners can track their progress without feeling overwhelmed?
The simplest method is often the most effective, a habit tracker. This could be a physical journal, a piece of paper, or even a simple app. For each habit you're working on, you create a space to mark it down each day. Let's say you're building a habit of drinking a glass of water first thing in the morning. Every day you do it, you put a check mark or an X next to it.
So, it's like building a chain of check marks?
Exactly like building a chain. And the powerful psychological effect is that you don't want to break the chain. Seeing that string of X's grow is incredibly motivating. It's visual proof of your consistency. And it's not about perfection. If you miss a day, you just pick up the chain the next day. The goal is to make the chain as long as possible over time.
That makes sense. It's a tangible representation of showing up. What about when you're trying to build a habit that's a bit more abstract, like meditating for 5 minutes? How do you track that?
For something like meditation, you still use the checkmark system. The checkmark represents completing the intended action, which is sitting down to meditate for those 5 minutes. It's not about measuring the quality of your meditation on any given day, but about marking the act of doing it. And this ties back beautifully to our discussion on identity. When you consistently mark off your daily meditation, you're not just tracking a habit, you're reinforcing the identity of someone who meditates. Each check mark is a vote for that identity.
Oh, I love that. So, the tracking becomes evidence of your evolving identity. It's not just about the action itself, but what that action signifies about who you are becoming.
Precisely. This is where we shift the focus from pure performance to consistent effort and small wins. For instance, if you're trying to read more and your goal is to read 10 pages a day, your tracker simply marks that you read. It doesn't matter if one day you read 5 pages and the next you read 15. What matters is that you're consistently engaging with the habit.
And this prevents that disheartening feeling when you have a bad day where you didn't hit a specific number. You can still get that satisfying check mark.
Absolutely. And another powerful way to measure your progress is by focusing on the improvement in the habit itself. For example, if your goal is to do 10 push-ups and for the first week you can only manage 3, your initial tracking might just be a check mark for trying. But then you can start noting how many you actually did. Maybe one day you get 4, then 5.
So, you can have primary tracking for showing up and secondary tracking for improvement?
Yes, you can have your daily check mark for showing up, and then perhaps a small note in your journal, push-ups for today. Or, if you're feeling more ambitious, you could track the overall output. For example, if you're learning a new skill like playing a musical instrument, you might track the minutes you practice. But again, the emphasis is on consistency. If you aim for 20 minutes and only get 15 on a busy day, you still mark that you practiced. The check mark is for the intention and action of practicing.
This is so much more encouraging than thinking I need to hit a perfect score every single day. It's about progress, not perfection.
Exactly. And this brings us back to the reward in the habit loop. Seeing the consistent progress, whether it's a growing chain of check marks or a gradual increase in reps, provides a natural reward. It's the satisfaction of seeing yourself improve and build something tangible. It reinforces the behavior and makes you want to continue. We're essentially creating a positive feedback loop. You take a small action, you track it, you feel accomplished by the tracking and the progress, and that feeling makes you more likely to take the action again. It's the microscopic wins stacking up.
So, to recap for our listeners, tracking your progress is not about rigid performance, but about celebrating consistency and small wins. Simple methods like habit trackers with check marks can help you build a visual chain of your actions, reinforcing your new identity and strengthening your habit loop. You can also track improvements within the habit itself, focusing on progress over perfection. This consistent measurement provides a natural reward that encourages you to keep going.
That's a fantastic summary. Lisa, remember, the goal is to make these atomic routines unshakable. Tracking is a vital tool to ensure they are indeed strengthening, not weakening, over time. Next episode, we'll explore a common hurdle, the plateau paradox. Welcome back. Last time we covered measuring your progress and those often overlooked wins. Now, let's tackle something that can feel like the opposite of progress, the plateau.
The plateau. I think we all know that feeling, Alex. You've been diligently following your atomic routines, maybe you've seen some great results, and then nothing. It feels like you've hit a wall, and you're just stuck.
Exactly, Lisa. And it's completely normal. The science of habit formation, and indeed, many areas of skill acquisition and personal growth, shows that progress is rarely a straight, upward line. It's more like a staircase, with periods of steady climbing followed by flat landings. Those landings are what we call plateaus.
So, the first step is recognizing that a plateau isn't failure, right? It's just a phase.
Absolutely. The plateau paradox is that when you feel the least progress, you might actually be laying the groundwork for the next big leap. Think of it like a gardener tilling the soil. It looks messy, maybe even unproductive, but it's essential preparation for new growth. When you hit a plateau, it's a signal to observe, not to despair. Are you still practicing the routine? Are you still showing up? If the answer is yes, that's valuable progress in itself. It's building consistency.
That's a great way to put it. So, you're still executing your atomic routines, but the outward results have slowed or stopped. What's the next step then? How do we navigate these flat periods without getting discouraged?
The first strategy is to zoom in on the micro progress. Remember how we discussed tracking those tiny wins? When you're on a plateau, it's even more crucial. Did you still complete your morning walk, even if it felt less invigorating? Did you still write your 1,000 words, even if they felt less inspired? These consistencies are the foundations. Don't let the absence of a dramatic outcome overshadow the discipline of showing up.
Right, so celebrate the consistency itself. It's proof the system is still running, even if the output meter has momentarily dipped.
Precisely. The next strategy is to consider restacking or reinforcing your existing habits. Think back to episode 3 with habit stacking. Maybe the trigger you're using isn't as potent as it once was, or the reward feels less satisfying. Could you slightly alter the trigger? Perhaps instead of your usual morning coffee, you now do your stretching routine before you even think about coffee. Or could you enhance the reward? If your reward was simply feeling accomplished, could it now be 5 minutes of reading a pleasurable book after your workout?
So, you're not abandoning the habit, just tweaking the connecting pieces to make it feel fresh or more appealing. That makes sense. It's like lubricating the gears of your system.
Exactly. And this leads us to another powerful tactic, introducing a new, tiny habit that complements your existing ones. We've built a good foundation with our initial atomic routines. Now, instead of trying to force more out of the old system, we can strategically add a new, small element. For example, if your goal is to read more and you're plateauing after your daily writing habit, could you add a 1-minute journaling session after writing, focused on what you read yesterday?
Oh, I like that. It's not a huge overhaul, but a gentle expansion. A tiny bit of novelty can reignite momentum. It's like adding a new spice to a familiar dish.
It really is. And this is where the environment design we talked about in episode 5 becomes important again. When you're on a plateau, is your environment still supporting your desired habits? Maybe your workout clothes aren't as visible or your healthy snacks are hidden. A quick audit and some minor adjustments to your surroundings can often provide the nudge you need.
So we got focusing on micro progress, restacking and reinforcing, adding a new tiny habit, and refining our environment. These are all about making small adjustments within the atomic framework rather than throwing the whole system out.
Precisely. And a key element here is identity shifts. Remember episodes 6 and 7? When you hit a plateau, it's easy to question your identity as someone who sticks to their routines or achieves their goals. Instead, reaffirm your identity. You are someone who practices, who learns, and who adapts. The plateau is just part of the learning process. You're the gardener tilling the soil. You're the architect adjusting the blueprints.
That's a powerful reminder. It's about how you see yourself, not just what you're doing. And when you see yourself as someone who navigates challenges, you'll be more likely to find solutions.
Absolutely. Finally, sometimes the plateau is a sign that you simply need a brief, strategic pause and recovery. We'll be discussing this more in episode 15, but for now, recognize that pushing relentlessly when you're stuck can be counterproductive. Sometimes taking a day or two to step back, without guilt, can be incredibly restorative and give you fresh perspective. Remember, rest is not the opposite of progress. It's often a vital component of sustained progress.
So, to recap for our listeners, plateaus are normal and expected. The key is to not see them as failure, but as a signal. We should focus on celebrating our consistency, restacking our habits in new ways, perhaps adding a complementary, tiny habit, and ensuring our environment supports our goals. And crucially, we need to reinforce our identity as someone who persists and adapts.
You've got it. Navigating these periods of stagnation is crucial for long-term success. It's about being a detective of your own system, making small, intelligent adjustments, and trusting the process. Thanks for listening. Welcome back. Last time, we explored the plateau paradox, those moments when it feels like our progress is stalled. Now, we're diving into how to push through those plateaus and accelerate your progress. Today, we're talking about restacking and reinforcing advanced habit stacking techniques.
That's right, Alex. We've already learned the basics of habit stacking when we discussed linking new habits to existing ones. But now we're going to take it to the next level.
Exactly, Lisa. Think of your initial habit stacks as building a single sturdy bridge. Now, we're going to explore building multi-lane highways and even intricate infrastructure. We're talking about stacking multiple habits, creating chain reactions, and using environmental cues to make these stacks incredibly powerful.
So, it's not just about one habit following another, but about creating a flow, a system where one action naturally leads to the next, and the next.
Precisely. The core idea behind advanced habit stacking is creating momentum. When one habit in your stack is completed, it triggers the next and the next. This makes the entire sequence feel less like a series of chores and more like a seamless flow. We're amplifying the power of those tiny systems we've been discussing.
How do we actually do that, though? How do we stack more than just two things?
A great way to start is by identifying natural transition points in your day and then building a chain of habits around them. For example, let's revisit the morning routine. You might have an existing habit, say making coffee. Instead of just having one small habit after that, you can stack several.
So, if my existing habit is make coffee, what could I stack onto that?
Well, after you finish making your coffee, you could immediately follow it with drink a glass of water. Then, as you drink the water, you could transition to do 5 minutes of stretching. And after stretching, perhaps write down one thing you're grateful for. This creates a chain. Make coffee leads to drinking water, which leads to stretching, which then leads to practicing gratitude.
Oh, I see. So, each action becomes a cue for the next. And the completion of one habit primes you for starting the next. It's like a domino effect.
That's a perfect analogy, Lisa. The domino effect. Each tiny habit, or atomic habit as we call them, is a domino. When one falls, it knocks over the next. The trick with advanced stacking is to design these domino chains so they flow naturally and don't feel overwhelming.
And you mentioned environmental cues. How do those fit into this?
Environmental cues are crucial for reinforcing these stacks. They're the triggers that help you remember and execute your habit chains. For instance, if your morning stack includes drinking water after coffee, you could place a glass by your coffee maker the night before. This visual cue is a powerful reminder.
So, the environment itself becomes a silent coach for your habits.
Exactly. Let's say your evening routine involves reading before bed. You could ensure your book is already on your nightstand, perhaps with a bookmark at the page you stopped at. This removes friction. You don't have to search for the book. The environment prompts you.
That makes so much sense. It's about making the desired action as easy as possible to initiate. We've talked about making habits obvious in earlier discussions, and this is a practical way to do it for a whole chain of habits.
Precisely. Another advanced technique is what we can call habit chaining loops. This is where you create a cycle of habits that reinforces itself. For example, if you're working on a creative project, you might have a stack like this. Open project file, write for 15 minutes, then save and close the file.
And saving and closing the file, of course, leads to the next time you open the project file.
You got it. It's a self-sustaining loop. The completion of the last habit in the chain naturally sets you up to begin the first habit again. This is incredibly powerful for building consistency, especially for goals that require sustained effort over time.
So, to summarize what we've covered today, advanced habit stacking is about creating powerful chains of habits that flow seamlessly from one to the next. We can achieve this by identifying natural transition points, stacking multiple small habits around them, and using environmental cues to make these stacks obvious and easy to initiate.
And we've also looked at habit chaining loops, where the end of one cycle directly leads back to the beginning of the next, creating a self-reinforcing momentum. This really highlights the compounding nature of these tiny systems. When you stack habits effectively, the effort of one action helps propel you into the next, making sustained progress feel almost automatic.
It sounds like these advanced techniques are key to breaking through those plateaus we discussed last time.
Absolutely. When you feel stuck, it's often because the friction is too high or the cues aren't strong enough. Restacking and reinforcing helps to eliminate that friction and strengthen those cues, making your desired behaviors more likely to happen, even when motivation is low. Remember, it's about designing your environment and your routines so that success is the default.
It's about making the path of least resistance the path of progress.
Exactly. We've laid a strong foundation for building and reinforcing habits. Next episode, we'll focus on something equally critical, the consistency compass and how to build unshakable habits. Welcome back. Last time, we explored advanced habit stacking. Today, we're diving deep into what truly makes tiny changes stick, the consistency compass.
The consistency compass. I love that image, Alex. Habits are easy to start, but incredibly hard to maintain. We've all had those moments where motivation vanishes and a new routine feels like a chore.
Exactly, Lisa. And that's where consistency becomes our most powerful tool. It's not about being perfect, it's about showing up even when you don't feel like it. Think of your habits like a muscle. If you only work it out when you feel inspired, it will never get stronger. But if you show up regularly, even for a short workout, that muscle grows. Consistency builds that reliable strength.
So, it's about discipline, but not in a harsh, force yourself way, right? It's more like building an internal system that guides us.
Precisely. We're building an internal compass that points towards our goals, no matter the external weather. The first step in building this unshakable consistency is to make our desired behaviors incredibly obvious and incredibly easy. We've touched on this before with environment design and tiny goals, but let's reinforce it here.
Like setting out your workout clothes the night before so that decision is already made the moment you wake up?
Perfect example. You're removing friction. You're making the do it option the path of least resistance. And if a habit is truly tiny, like just doing one push-up, it becomes almost harder not to do it than to do it. We want to create a situation where the desired behavior is the default.
And I imagine that obvious part also means our cues are in place. If we want to drink more water, maybe keeping a water bottle visible on our desk.
Absolutely. Your cues are the triggers. Your environment is built with those triggers in mind. And remember our habit stacking? That's another layer of consistency. Instead of relying on sheer willpower, you're linking your new habit to something you already do consistently. For example, after I pour my morning coffee, I will meditate for 1 minute. That, after I pour my coffee, is your cue, and it's a cue you're already responding to daily.
So, we're making the habit obvious and easy, and we're stacking it onto existing behaviors. But what about those days when our environment isn't perfect, or when life throws a curveball? That's where motivation usually dies.
That's the crucial test for consistency. This is where we need to shift our focus from outcome to process. We aim to be consistent with the process, not necessarily with achieving a perfect outcome every single time. And a key strategy here is the 2-minute rule.
We've heard of this before, right? Making a habit take less than 2 minutes to do?
Exactly. The goal with the 2-minute rule is to make it impossible to fail. If your habit is to read, commit to reading for 2 minutes. If your habit is to exercise, commit to doing one push-up. The goal isn't to do a full workout or read a chapter. It's simply to start. This reinforces the consistency of the action, not the intensity or duration of the outcome.
So, the focus is on showing up, even in the smallest way. It's about not breaking the chain.
Precisely. And to help with that, a simple tracking system can be incredibly powerful. We talked about tracking tiny progress before, but here we're tracking the consistency of our showing up. A simple calendar where you mark an X for every day you complete your habit. The visual of that chain of excess can be a powerful motivator to keep it going.
Oh, I like that. It becomes a game of not breaking the chain. It's tangible proof that you're being consistent.
It is. And this leads to a very important concept, celebrating your streaks. When you hit a small milestone like 7 days in a row of your habit, acknowledge it. Give yourself a small, healthy reward. This positive reinforcement trains your brain to associate the habit with a good feeling, further cementing its place in your routine.
So, we're building the habit through consistency, making it easy and obvious, using cues and stacking, focusing on the small action with the 2-minute rule, tracking our progress, and then rewarding ourselves for being consistent. That sounds like a pretty robust system.
It is. And it's important to remember that consistency doesn't mean you never miss a day. Life happens. The key is what we call the never miss twice rule. If you miss a day, don't let it derail you. The moment you miss one session, recommit to getting back on track the very next day. One missed session is an anomaly. 2 consecutive missed sessions can start a downward spiral.
That's a critical piece of advice. It's not about perfection, but about resilience. Don't let a stumble turn into a fall.
Exactly. And as you build this consistency, you'll start to notice a shift. Your habits will begin to feel less like tasks you have to do, and more like a natural part of who you are. This is the power of identity in action, which we covered earlier. When your habits align with your desired identity, consistency becomes almost effortless because you're simply being yourself.
So, the consistency compass isn't just about external tools. It's about cultivating an internal drive that comes from truly embodying the person who performs these habits. It's about showing up for that identity.
You got it. The compass is both the external system we build and the internal conviction that guides us. By focusing on showing up, on making it easy, on tracking our progress, and on never missing twice, we build this unshakable consistency. We are transforming those fleeting moments of motivation into a reliable, ever-present force for positive change.
So, to recap, we build consistency by making habits obvious and easy, using habit stacking, employing the 2-minute rule to ensure we always show up, tracking our streaks, and crucially, by adhering to the never miss twice rule. This all leads to habits feeling like a natural expression of our identity, powered by an internal compass.
That's right. Next episode, Atomic Habits for Specific Goals, Health and Fitness. Welcome back to Atomic Routines. Today, we're applying our tiny systems to health and fitness.
That's right, Alex. We've learned so much about building small, consistent habits. Now, how do we make those habits stick when it comes to something as crucial as our physical well-being?
Great question, Lisa. This is where the power of atomic habits really shines. Often, when we think about health and fitness, we imagine massive, overwhelming changes. We think about joining a gym and going for an hour every day, or completely overhauling our diet overnight.
And that's usually where people get discouraged. Those big, sudden changes are incredibly difficult to maintain.
Exactly. The atomic approach flips that on its head. We focus on making the smallest possible changes that are almost impossible to fail at. Think about exercise. Instead of saying, I need to work out for 45 minutes, what's the absolute smallest step you can take?
Maybe it's just putting on your workout clothes or doing 5 push-ups.
Perfect. Let's say your goal is to establish a consistent exercise habit. Your atomic habit might be as simple as, after I finish my morning coffee, I will do 5 squats. That sounds ridiculously small, doesn't it?
It does. So small you can't really say no to it.
Precisely. And the beauty is, once you've done those 5 squats, you might feel a little energized. You might think, hey, I could do another 5. Or maybe not. But you've completed the habit. You've shown up for yourself. That's the key. Building the identity of someone who exercises, not just aiming for a workout session.
So, it's about reinforcing the identity first. By doing those 5 squats, I'm proving to myself that I am a person who exercises, even if it's just a tiny bit.
You've got it. And this applies just as much to nutrition. Instead of saying, I'm going to eat perfectly healthy from now on. What's your atomic habit? It might be, before I eat any meal, I will drink 1 glass of water.
Oh, I like that. It's so simple, but it forces a pause and a conscious choice. And hydration is so important for overall health.
It really is. Or consider this. After I finish my lunch, I will discard all half-eaten junk food from my desk. It's not about not eating the junk food. It's about making it a little bit harder to access. We're subtly designing our environment, remember?
Right? We're using our environment design principles to make the healthy choices the path of least resistance. What about something like mindfulness or mental health, which is also a crucial part of fitness?
Absolutely. Atomic habits for mental well-being can be incredibly powerful. For example, if your goal is to reduce stress, your atomic habit might be, every evening before I check my phone, I will take 3 deep breaths.
Just 3 deep breaths? That's quick enough that you wouldn't feel resistant.
Exactly. And over time, those 3 deep breaths become a cue. They signal to your body and mind that it's time to calm down. They start to change your internal state. Another example could be, when I feel overwhelmed by a task, I will write down 1 positive thing that has happened today.
That's a great way to shift your focus. It's small, but it counters the negative spiral.
It's all about small, deliberate actions that build upon each other. We're not trying to sprint a marathon. We're taking consistent, tiny steps. Think of it like habit stacking for health. You can stack your new tiny habit onto an existing, strong habit.
So, building on the exercise example, my strong habit is making coffee in the morning. I can stack my 5 squats habit directly after that.
Precisely. After I pour my coffee, I will do 5 squats. Or for nutrition, after I finish brushing my teeth in the morning, I will take my daily vitamin.
And this makes it so much more attainable. It's not about willpower, it's about creating a system that supports your goals.
Exactly. We're not relying on sheer grit. We're engineering our success through tiny, manageable actions. You make it so easy to start that you can't say no. And then you make it so that the behavior becomes its own reward. The feeling of accomplishment from completing your 5 squats or drinking that glass of water becomes the reinforcement.
It's like building a momentum snowball. Each tiny win, no matter how small, adds a little bit of mass, and eventually, that snowball can become something quite significant.
That's a perfect analogy, Lisa. We're not aiming for instant transformations. We're aiming for sustainable progress. We want to build routines that become so ingrained, so automatic, that they don't feel like a chore anymore. They become part of who we are.
So, to recap for our listeners, when focusing on health and fitness, break down your goals into the absolute smallest possible actions. Make them so easy to do that you can't say no. Use habit stacking to link these tiny actions to existing strong habits. And remember, it's about building the identity of a healthy person through these consistent, microscopic wins, rather than relying on massive efforts.
That's the atomic advantage for health and fitness. It's about consistent action over intensity and making progress inevitable through incredibly small steps. We've only scratched the surface, but the principle is powerful. Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying, even if those steps are tiny. Thanks for listening. Welcome back. Last time, we explored building healthier habits for our bodies. Today, we're shifting our focus to mastering our minds and getting things done, productivity and focus.
Productivity and focus. Two things I think everyone struggles with at some point, right? It feels like there are endless distractions, and sometimes just getting started feels like the biggest hurdle.
Absolutely. And that's exactly where the principles of atomic routine shine. Remember how we talked about making habits ridiculously small and easy? That's our superpower for productivity and focus too. Instead of thinking about overhauling your entire workday, we break it down into tiny, actionable steps.
So instead of aiming to be more productive all day, we're looking at specific, tiny actions that lead to productivity. Can you give us some examples?
Sure, let's start with task management. We often feel overwhelmed by a long to-do list. The atomic habit approach here is to make the first step incredibly simple. For instance, when you sit down to work, your atomic habit might be open my task list. That's it. Not complete 5 tasks, just open my task list. This little cue triggers the next action.
That's so much less daunting. So the cue is opening the list. And then what's the reward? Maybe seeing what needs to be done reduces that feeling of being lost?
Exactly. The reward is the clarity of seeing your tasks. And then you can build on that with another tiny habit. Choose the very next task. Again, not complete the hardest task or do 3 tasks, just choose the very next one. This tiny step makes starting the actual work feel manageable.
I love that. It's about getting momentum with the smallest possible push. What about focus itself? It feels like our attention spans are getting shorter by the day with constant notifications.
That's a huge challenge. For focus, we can design our environment to minimize distractions. Remember episode 5 on environment design? For productivity, this is crucial. Your atomic habit for focus might be turn off phone notifications for 30 minutes. Or even simpler, put my phone on silent.
Just putting it on silent feels like a win sometimes. And then, how do we encourage ourselves to stay focused during that time?
This is where we can use habit stacking and tiny goals. If your atomic habit is open the document for the project I need to work on, then your next stacked habit could be write one sentence. That's a tiny goal, right? A single sentence is achievable. And the reward is the feeling of accomplishment, checking that one tiny piece off your list.
So, we're not expecting ourselves to write a whole chapter in one go. Just one sentence builds the habit of writing. And this applies to any task, whether it's writing a report, coding, or even cleaning.
Precisely. Another powerful technique for focus is something called deep work. Productivity expert Cal Newport talks about dedicating blocks of time to focused, uninterrupted work. We can create atomic habits to support this. For example, your atomic habit could be prepare my workspace by clearing clutter. Before you even start your focus session, you create an environment conducive to concentration.
That makes sense. A clear desk often leads to a clearer mind. So, the habit is preparing. The reward is a less distracting environment, which then enables deeper focus.
Right? And for those moments when you feel your mind wandering, because it will, a good atomic habit is a focus check-in. This could be as simple as take 3 deep breaths and refocus on the task. This is a tiny reset button for your attention.
A reset button. I like that analogy. It's about acknowledging the drift and gently guiding yourself back without judgment. It's not about never getting distracted, but about having a simple, repeatable way to return to your work.
Exactly. And remember, we discussed tracking our progress in episode 8. For productivity, tracking can be as simple as noting down how many one-sentence writing sessions you completed or how many 30-minute focus blocks you achieved. Seeing that progress, however small, is a powerful reinforcement.
So, let's recap for our listeners. When it comes to productivity and focus, atomic routines help us by 1. Breaking down overwhelming tasks into the absolute smallest first step. Think, open my task list or open the document. 2. Designing our environment to minimize distractions using habits like put my phone on silent or clear my workspace. 3. Using tiny goals and habit stacking to build momentum, like writing one sentence or choosing the very next task. 4. Implementing mini resets like taking 3 deep breaths to bring your focus back. And 5. Tracking these tiny wins to reinforce the behavior.
That's a perfect summary, Lisa. It's all about making the desirable behavior, being productive and focused, as easy as possible to start and sustain. These tiny systems, when consistently applied, compound over time to create significant increases in your output and your ability to concentrate. Remember, it's not about working harder, it's about working smarter with tiny, powerful habits.
It's amazing how these small, almost insignificant actions can lead to such big results. I'm definitely going to try implementing some of these today.
Next episode, building atomic routines for healthier relationships and deeper connections with others. Welcome back. Last time, we discussed building powerful habits for productivity and focus. Now, we're shifting gears to something just as vital, building stronger, more meaningful connections with the people in our lives.
That's right, Alex. We've talked about habits for self-improvement, but our relationships are a huge part of our overall well-being. It's easy to get so focused on our own goals that we unintentionally neglect the people who matter most. So, how do we apply the principles of atomic habits to our relationships?
It's all about making small, intentional actions that, over time, create a significant positive impact. Just like a tiny habit can help you read more or focus better, tiny habit shifts can dramatically improve how you connect with others. We're talking about actions so small they're almost effortless, but they build up to something powerful.
So instead of saying, I need to be a better communicator, we break that down into tiny, actionable steps.
Exactly. Let's think about communication. One simple atomic habit could be, after every conversation, I will ask one clarifying question. It's a micro habit designed to ensure you're truly understanding the other person, not just hearing them. This is a fundamental technique we've discussed before, breaking down big goals into manageable micro actions.
I like that. It makes being a better listener less daunting. Another way we can build on this is by showing appreciation. How can we weave that into our routine?
A great atomic habit for appreciation is the one specific compliment rule. Once a day, offer one genuine, specific compliment to a partner, friend, or family member. Not just you're great, but I really appreciated how you handled that difficult situation at work, or that color looks wonderful on you. Specificity makes it sincere and memorable.
That's such a lovely idea. It makes people feel truly seen. And we can use habit stacking with this, right? We could stack this compliment habit after a common daily activity.
Absolutely. Habit stacking is perfect here. For instance, as you're preparing dinner together, or right before you say goodnight, you could offer that specific compliment. You're linking a new, valuable habit to an existing routine. Remember when we discussed habit stacking? This is a prime example of putting that into practice for relationship building.
So we have asking clarifying questions and giving specific compliments. What about empathy? That feels like a bigger concept.
Empathy starts with understanding. A good atomic habit to cultivate empathy is this. Before responding in a disagreement, silently acknowledge the other person's feelings. You might even internally say to yourself, they're feeling frustrated right now, or they seem hurt by this. You don't have to agree with them, but acknowledging their emotional state opens the door for a more empathetic response.
That's powerful. It's like pausing to step into their shoes for just a moment before you react. It requires a conscious effort, but it's a very small effort, isn't it?
Precisely. And think about how this builds up. Over time, this practice makes you more attuned to others' emotions, making you a more empathetic presence in their lives. It's a subtle shift that fosters a deeper emotional connection. We're essentially designing our environment emotionally by consciously choosing to be more aware.
And what about actively showing you care? Sometimes we assume people know we care, but it's the actions that truly convey it.
Definitely. A powerful atomic habit for showing you care is the presence promise. Commit to being fully present during a designated time each day with the people you care about. This means no phones, no distractions, just genuine, undivided attention for a set period, even if it's just 5 or 10 minutes. This is about designing your environment to prioritize connection.
That presence promise is a great anchor for ensuring dedicated connection time. It's like promising yourself to be there fully and truly. And it taps into our earlier discussion about environment design, doesn't it? Making sure our physical or digital space supports these moments.
It does. And remember, the key is consistency. These aren't grand gestures. They are tiny, consistent actions that, much like saving small amounts of money, grow into significant assets over time. Your relationships become richer, more stable, and more fulfilling because you've consistently invested in them with these atomic routines.
You're reminding me that these aren't just about doing things for others, but about who you are becoming. By consistently practicing these small acts, you are cultivating the identity of someone who is caring, attentive, and empathetic.
That's the core of it, Lisa. Your habits shape your identity, and your identity shapes your habits. By choosing these atomic routines for relationships, you're reinforcing the identity of someone who deeply values connection. You're becoming the kind of person who naturally fosters strong bonds.
So, to recap for our listeners, we can strengthen our relationships by implementing tiny, consistent habits. These include asking clarifying questions to improve communication, offering specific compliments to show appreciation, taking a moment to acknowledge feelings to build empathy, and making a presence promise for dedicated, distraction-free time. All of these small actions compound over time to create deeper, more meaningful connections.
And by stacking these habits onto existing routines and designing our environment to support them, we make them even more sustainable. It's about building a system for connection, not just hoping for it.
It makes so much sense. It's about making the effort effortless by making it microscopic.
Exactly. These tiny systems truly ignite big changes, not just in ourselves, but in the most important relationships in our lives. Happy learning. Welcome back to Atomic Routines. Today we delve into a topic crucial for long-term success, the power of the pause.
That's right, Alex. We've spent a lot of time talking about consistency, about stacking habits, and designing your environment. But what happens when you just stop? Is that a failure, or is it a strategy?
Exactly. For a long time, the dominant message was hustle harder. Push through, never stop, always be building. While dedication is important, that relentlessly forward momentum can actually lead to burnout, diminishing returns, and ultimately the breakdown of the very systems we've worked so hard to build.
So, instead of thinking of rest as a reward at the end of a long journey, we should see it as a vital part of the journey itself?
Precisely. Think of it like training for a marathon. You can't just run every single day, pushing your limits. Your muscles need time to repair and rebuild. Without that recovery, you risk injury and won't actually get stronger. It's the same with our habits and our personal systems.
That makes so much sense. So, how do we intentionally build the pause into our atomic routines? It's not just about sleeping, is it?
No, it's much more than just sleep, though sleep is a fundamental pillar of recovery. We're talking about strategic rest and mindful downtime. One of the most powerful ways to implement this is through what we can call active recovery.
Active recovery? That sounds like a bit of a contradiction.
It does, doesn't it? But it means engaging in activities that are restorative and help your mind and body bounce back without being completely passive. So, for instance, after a really intense focus session on a work project, instead of immediately jumping to another mentally demanding task, you might take a short walk in nature.
So it's not necessarily doing nothing, but doing something that replenishes you instead of draining you further.
Exactly. It's about switching gears. Another form of active recovery is mindful movement. Think gentle stretching, yoga, or a leisurely bike ride. These activities can help release physical tension you might be holding on to from long periods of sitting or intense concentration. They keep your body moving in a way that supports, rather than depletes, your energy levels.
And this actively helps prevent burnout, which we know can derail even the most well-intentioned habits.
Absolutely. Burnout is that feeling of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion. It's like your internal battery has been drained completely and can't be recharged easily. Strategic pauses help you avoid hitting that critical low. They are proactive measures, not reactive ones.
So, we're looking at incorporating short, restorative breaks throughout the day, perhaps longer periods of active recovery, and of course, ensuring sufficient sleep. What about mental downtime?
That's crucial, Lisa. Our minds are constantly processing information. Even when we're watching TV, our brains are still engaged. True mental downtime often involves activities that allow your mind to wander without a specific goal. Think of something like journaling or simply sitting quietly and observing your thoughts without judgment.
That's where that idea of doing nothing might come in, but with a mindful intention.
Precisely. It's about creating space for reflection and mental reset. Another powerful concept here is recognizing the recovery cycle. Just as you have periods of effort and rest and physical training, you need them in your daily routines. Think of it as cycles of deep work followed by periods of lower intensity or pure rest. For example, after a 2-hour block of focused work, schedule a 15-minute break to do something completely unrelated and relaxing.
So, it's not just about when you feel tired, but actively planning these periods of replenishment. It feels like we're reframing rest not as a sign of weakness, but as a performance enhancer.
That's the core idea. When you prioritize rest, you actually increase your capacity for future effort. Your focus sharpens, your creativity flows better, and your decision-making improves. It's like sharpening the saw. You might spend a little time sharpening, but the time spent makes all the subsequent cutting much more efficient. How many times have we seen people push through exhaustion, only to make mistakes or become less productive in the long run?
Too many to count. It's a costly lesson. So, to recap for our listeners, we're not just aiming for consistency, we're aiming for sustainable consistency. This means intentionally integrating periods of rest and recovery into our atomic routines. This includes ensuring adequate sleep, engaging in active recovery like gentle movement, and allowing for mental downtime through mindfulness or reflection.
And remember, these aren't just rewards for hard work. They're integral components that fuel your ability to work hard in the first place. By embracing the power of the pause, we create more resilient, effective, and ultimately more enjoyable systems for lasting change.
So, don't be afraid to step away, to recharge, to simply be. It's one of the most powerful steps you can take towards becoming your best self. Next episode, the compound effect revealed, your future self.
Welcome back. We're going to unveil the incredible power of the compound effect.
It's episode 16, and we've explored so many practical ways to build habits. We've talked about making them obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. We've designed environments, focused on identity, and even explored the crucial role of rest.
That's right, Lisa. And what ties all those strategies together is the underlying principle of compounding. Think about it. We've been focusing on these atomic routines, the smallest possible actions. But the real magic happens not from a single action, but from the repetition of that action over time.
So, it's like planting a tiny seed today and not seeing a huge tree tomorrow, but knowing that with consistent watering and sunlight, something significant will grow.
Exactly. That's a fantastic analogy. The compound effect is precisely that: small gains consistently applied, leading to remarkable results. It's the idea that your actions today compound to create your reality tomorrow and the day after that. We often get discouraged because we want to see massive change immediately. But the most powerful changes in our lives and the biggest improvements happen gradually.
It's easy to dismiss a small habit as insignificant, like reading just one page of a book, or doing just 5 push-ups, or saving just $1. Without the understanding of compounding, those actions can feel pointless in the short term.
Absolutely. But let's imagine you commit to reading just 10 pages of a book every single day. That sounds incredibly manageable, right? 10 pages a day. Over a year, that's over 3,600 pages. That's dozens of books. Can you imagine the knowledge and perspective you'd gain just from that one small, consistent habit?
Wow, that's a great example. It puts it into perspective. It's not about the Herculean effort today, but the persistent, small effort. So it's about understanding that these tiny routines are not just about improving your day, but about systematically building a better future you.
Precisely. Your future self is a direct result of the atomic routines you're practicing today. Think about your health. If you consistently choose a healthy meal over an unhealthy one, or go for a short walk instead of sitting on the couch, those small decisions, compounded over months and years, lead to a dramatically different health outcome. You're not just improving your health today, you're investing in a healthier, more vibrant future.
And it works for productivity too, doesn't it? If you spend just 15 minutes each morning planning your day or tackling your most important task, that adds up. Over time, that clarity and focus can propel you forward in ways you might not even anticipate.
It can. It's about seeing those small wins not as isolated events, but as crucial steps in a larger, ongoing process. We've touched on this throughout the series when we discussed measuring progress. It's not just about tracking if you did the habit today, but appreciating that today's yes to that habit is a building block for who you are becoming.
So, even when we face the plateau paradox, remembering the compound effect could have been a key to getting through it. Knowing that the small efforts continue to add up, even if the immediate results aren't visible.
Exactly. The plateau doesn't mean you're not progressing. It often means the gains are becoming so significant that they're harder to perceive on a day-to-day basis. Much like the difference between two very large numbers. The growth is still happening, but it's exponential, not linear. Imagine a snowball rolling down a hill. At first, it picks up only a little snow. But as it gets bigger, it gains momentum and picks up exponentially more snow with each rotation.
That's such a powerful image. It makes you realize that sticking with your small routines is like giving that snowball the initial push and consistent direction. It's about trusting the process, even when you can't see the final mountain.
And that's the essence of building your future self. It's not about making one giant leap. It's about consistently taking those tiny atomic steps. Every time you complete a routine, you're reinforcing a positive behavior, strengthening a neural pathway, and nudging yourself closer to the person you aspire to be.
So, the work continues. The power is in applying these principles consistently, day in and day out. It's about becoming a master of small, consistent actions that lead to monumental change over time.
You've got it. The compound effect is the unseen architect of your life. And by consciously designing your atomic routines, you're deliberately choosing what kind of future you build. It's an ongoing journey of incremental improvements that, over time, lead to profound transformations.
It really is the foundation of everything we've discussed. Small habits, compounded, create who we become. Thank you, Alex, for guiding us through this incredible concept today.
My pleasure, Lisa. And thank you to our listeners for joining us on this journey. Next episode, troubleshooting your atomic routines when things go wrong. Welcome back. Last time we covered the incredible power of the compound effect. Today, we're troubleshooting your atomic routines.
Absolutely, Alex. We've built some fantastic systems, but what do you do when motivation dips, a busy week throws you off track, or a routine suddenly feels like a chore? That's exactly what we're here to discuss today. How to fix your atomic routines when things go wrong.
That's right, Lisa. The first big hurdle most people face is unexpected disruptions. Life doesn't always run on schedule. You might get sick, have a family emergency, or simply experience an unusually demanding period at work. When this happens, the temptation is to abandon your routine altogether, thinking, I've missed a day, so I might as well give up.
Oh, I can totally relate to that feeling. It's like the perfect system has been broken, and you don't know how to put it back together. So, what's the atomic solution to this life disruption problem?
The key here is to embrace flexibility and remember the 2-minute rule we talked about. When you miss a planned session of a habit, don't try to immediately jump back into the full routine with the same intensity. Instead, scale it back. If your routine was to meditate for 20 minutes, just do 1 minute. If you're supposed to do 30 push-ups, do 2. The goal isn't perfection in the moment of disruption. It's simply to maintain the act of doing something.
Ah, so it's about keeping the chain unbroken, even if the link is tiny. That makes so much sense. It prevents that all or nothing thinking that can derail us. So, the strategy is Revert to the smallest possible version of the habit to stay in the game.
Exactly. And this leads to another common problem: motivation waning. Sometimes a habit that once felt exciting just becomes boring. You've been doing it for a while, you're not seeing a dramatic new result, and the novelty has worn off. What do we do then?
That's a tough one. It's easy to get discouraged when the initial surge of enthusiasm fades. How do we reignite that spark, or more importantly, build a system that doesn't solely rely on feeling motivated?
This is where we revisit the power of identity and environment. If a routine feels like a chore, ask yourself why you're doing it. Remind yourself of the identity you're trying to build. Are you trying to become a focused writer? A healthy individual? Reconnect with that vision. Sometimes, the lack of motivation stems from a disconnect with why this habit matters to you on a deeper level.
So, instead of just saying, I have to write for 30 minutes, it shifts to, I am a writer and writers show up to write. That's a powerful reframing. What about the environment?
Your environment is your silent partner in habit formation. If the routine is becoming monotonous, look for ways to make it more appealing or engaging. For example, if your morning exercise feels stale, could you try a new workout video? Listen to a different podcast? Or if your productivity routine is feeling like a slog, could you rearrange your workspace to make it more inspiring? Small tweaks to your surroundings can make a surprisingly big difference.
That's a great point. It's not just about the action itself, but the context in which we perform it. And speaking of actions feeling like chores, what if a habit has actually become detrimental or no longer serves you? Life changes, goals evolve. What do you do then?
This is a valuable realization, and it's a sign of growth. If a habit is genuinely not serving your current goals or well-being, it's okay to let it go or adapt it significantly. This is where restacking comes in, as we discussed earlier. You might need to detach the habit from its old trigger or association. Perhaps the habit needs a new, more relevant trigger, or maybe it needs to be replaced entirely by a new habit that better aligns with your current path.
So, it's about being honest with ourselves and occasionally reassessing if our routines are still moving us forward and being brave enough to change them if they're not. It's not failure to adapt, right?
Absolutely not. It's intelligent adaptation. And sometimes the problem isn't with the habit itself, but with the frequency or intensity. Maybe you've set the bar too high from the start. You wanted to go from zero to a marathon, and you're ending up injured or burnt out.
That describes ignoring the tiny goal guarantee we covered. If a routine feels too hard, the solution is to make it even smaller?
Precisely. If a habit is consistently feeling like a struggle, the immediate fix is usually to reduce the demand. Make it so easy that you can't say no. Instead of 10 minutes of journaling, do one sentence. Instead of a full hour at the gym, do 10 minutes. Make it ridiculously simple for a period just to rebuild the consistency and the positive feedback loop.
That's reassuring. It means we can always dial things back to make them manageable. So, let's recap the main troubleshooting strategies we've discussed. For disruptions, remember the 2-minute rule to keep the habit going, even in a shrunk-down version. For waning motivation, reconnect with your identity and redesign your environment to make the habit more appealing. And if a habit is no longer serving you, or if it's just too hard, don't be afraid to scale it back, adapt it, or even replace it.
Well put, Lisa. The core message is that these routines are tools to serve you, not rigid masters. They need to be flexible enough to accommodate life's unpredictability while remaining strong enough to guide you toward your goals. Persistence doesn't mean never faltering. It means getting back on track, even if it's just a tiny step.
It's about building resilience into our systems. Thank you, Alex, for these practical insights. It's empowering to know we have these strategies when our atomic routines hit a snag.
My pleasure. Next episode, the Atomic Routines Masterclass, Integrated Systems for Life. Welcome back, everyone, to the final episode of Atomic Routines. We've spent 17 episodes building tiny systems, and today we're bringing it all together into an integrated masterclass for life.
It's hard to believe we're at the end of our journey, Alex. We've explored so many powerful ideas, from the atomic spark igniting change to the compound effect of tiny habits. I'm excited to see how we weave it all together today.
Me too, Lisa. Think of it this way. We've gathered all the best tools and ingredients. Now we're going to build the most amazing meal where every dish complements the others perfectly. We're talking about integrating atomic routines across all areas of your life: health, work, relationships, your personal growth.
So, it's not just about having a few good habits here and there, but about creating a cohesive system that supports a better you.
Exactly. And the foundation of this integrated system is identity. Remember episode 6, where we talked about the identity equation. The most effective way to build lasting habits is to become the type of person who already has those habits. If you want to be a runner, you start thinking of yourself as a runner.
And that identity shift is what drives the motivation to continue, even when things get tough. It's no longer about forcing yourself to do something, but about acting in alignment with who you are becoming.
Precisely. And once that identity is established, environment design becomes our architect. Remember episode 5? We learned how to design our surroundings to make good habits obvious, attractive, and easy, and bad habits invisible, unattractive, and difficult. This applies to every area.
So, if my identity is that of a productive person, my environment needs to support that. Maybe that means a clean, organized workspace, minimizing distractions, and having the tools I need readily available.
You've got it. For health and fitness, your environment might mean having healthy snacks visible and junk food out of sight. For relationships, it might mean setting aside screen-free time after dinner. It's about intention. Now, let's talk about the engine of our system: habit stacking and tiny goals, building on what we learned in episodes 3 and 4. This is where consistency really takes hold. You link a new, small habit to an existing one that you already do reliably.
Like brushing your teeth immediately followed by 5 minutes of meditation, or finishing your morning coffee and then writing one sentence for your book. The goals are so tiny, they feel effortless.
And that effortlessness is key to overcoming the plateau paradox, which we discussed in episode 9. When you hit a period of stagnation, you don't abandon the system. You restack, you make it even smaller, you reinforce the identity. It's about progress, not perfection.
So if I'm finding it hard to stick to my daily journaling, I don't just give up. I might go back to just writing one word or simply opening the journal so it's visible. That keeps the habit alive.
Exactly. And remember episode 11, the consistency compass? That's about building an unshakable foundation. It's not about being perfect every day, but about showing up consistently, even if it's just a tiny version of the habit. This is how you build trust with yourself.
And that trust is crucial. When you know you'll show up, even in a small way, you build momentum. It's like the compound effect we talked about in episode 16. Those tiny, consistent actions snowball over time, leading to remarkable results you might not see in the short term.
Think of your current self and your future self. Your future self is the result of the consistent, tiny actions you take today. Building these integrated routines is an act of profound self-care and self-investment.
So, to recap our masterclass today, we start with identity. Who do you want to be? Then, we design our environment to support that identity. We use habit stacking and tiny goals to make the actions effortless and ensure consistency. We navigate plateaus by reinforcing and restacking, and we trust the compound effect to work its magic.
And don't forget episode 15, the power of the pause. Rest and recovery aren't optional. They are integral parts of any sustainable system. Burnout is the enemy of integration. Schedule your rest, your reflection, just as you schedule your habits.
It's a holistic approach, then. Not just about performance, but about creating a sustainable, fulfilling life where your habits serve your deepest values and aspirations.
That's absolutely right. I want to encourage everyone listening. Don't get overwhelmed by trying to implement everything at once. Pick one area, one identity shift, one tiny habit to stack. Start there. Let it become automatic. Then add another. Your system will evolve organically.
It's about creating a ripple effect, starting with those atomic sparks. We've learned that tiny systems, when implemented consistently and integrated intelligently, can ignite truly significant change.
And that brings us to the end of our series. We've covered the atomic spark and the power of the loop, habit stacking and tiny goals, environment design and identity shifts, tracking progress and navigating plateaus, reinforcing habits and the consistency compass, applying atomic habits to specific goals like health, productivity, and relationships, the importance of rest, the revealed compound effect, troubleshooting your routines, and today, a masterclass in integrated systems.
It's been an incredible journey, Alex. I feel so much more empowered to build the life I envision, one tiny, atomic routine at a time.
And I hope all our listeners do too. Remember, the power to change your life lies in the small, consistent actions you take each day. Thanks for listening to the series.